Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Tommo, and welcome to a Chinwag. But not just any kind of Chinwag, not the typical pre or post race, because we don't have any races, but we do have a certain little subject I want to touch on. The main idea for this Chinwag, to be honest, was more of a Q&A. I did ask you lot on the community tab yesterday for some suggestions, and we will get through some, as well as everyone here on live chat, Joe, Seamus, Marcus, and the rest of you. Thank you all for joining me. But this is interesting. This is very interesting as far as I'm concerned, because there's been some punchy words being dropped by a certain Mr. Otmar Szafnauer on the High Performance Podcast. We will get into that. But first of all, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, don't forget, video version of this is going to be out on Spotify after the fact, audio only, Apple Pods, and all the rest. So check it out. But yes, Otmar got screwed. Now look, of course, much of this comes with a healthy dose of we're only hearing Otmar's side of the story. And that is true. There are two sides to every story. However, I've got to say, in my opinion, and perhaps this comes from a position of, I like Otmar. I think Otmar got a hard time at the time. I think there were times at Alpine where my belief and my support of Otmar was certainly tested and things didn't look particularly great. But I think hearing this interview and my suspicions at the time and the subsequent fallout at Alpine has made me more confident in my assertion that, you know what, this guy's a good guy. And I think he got screwed. I think he got the wrong end of the stick. I think he did a fantastic job at Force India. The Aston Martin money, pressure, expectation came in, pushed him out, and then Alpine, well, that was a whole nother story, wasn't it? So, this all comes courtesy of the High Performance Podcast. They released it this morning. The episode, at least on YouTube anyway. We saw a couple of clips beforehand. Very interesting podcast. There is a link to the full thing in the description down below. I would recommend you check it out after you finish watching me, okay? But in terms of this whole Otmar story, I've made some notes on my phone going over the basics, okay, of his Aston Martin Alpine journey. Hello, Lowell from LA. Of course, yes, this is 9:30 p.m. UK time, so I may be joined by some people who don't typically get to consume these streams live on YouTube. So welcome to everyone who is in time zones that don't get typically catered to my live streams. Right, so first of all, Aston Martin. Now, again, Otmar came in, Force India, working under Vijay Mallya, building that team up from the ground up. Andy Green was one of his first hires. He hired everyone at that team at Force India and built that team to punch above its weight consistently. Vijay was a hands-off kind of boss. He wasn't a micromanager, which we've all come across them. I'm sure if you haven't, if you're maybe too young to have worked, you may not have come across micromanagers just yet, but trust me, they're coming and they're annoying. But Vijay was not one of them. Let the team get on, do their thing, and achieved a lot of success. There's some really interesting stories again in the podcast that I would recommend you listen to get the full juice. But yeah, did a great job. Force India, of course, the team. It fell on hard times. That was through Vijay, because Vijay got caught up, didn't he, in some trouble. Was it with the Indian government around tax or something? I can't actually remember. I'm sure someone in the live chat is more aware of the conditions in which Vijay basically kind of got out of that team. Team went up for sale. Lawrence Stroll bought it, rebranded it to Racing Point, and then of course Aston Martin was slapped on it. How many years of Racing Point did we get? Was it 2 or just the 1? Was it the UK government? Oh, fair enough. It was the UK government. It was something along those lines. And the Lawrence Stroll... Look, Lawrence wanted results quick. And that desire for overnight success is something that, Otmar mentions a few times in this. And Martin Whitmarsh was brought in, of course, someone who had a lot of success at McLaren back in the day, and essentially phased out Otmar. Otmar did choose to leave. He could have stayed, but he was doing a fraction of his job that he once was, and saw the project to Alpine, a team that needed some help and wanted him, which, again, if you're going to bring someone in like Martin Whitmarsh and essentially phase out a team principal for another one, it doesn't scream that they wanted Otmar, does it? It screams that they want a new approach. And you know what? Lawrence Stroll, whether it's Sebastian Vettel behind the wheel, whether it's Martin Whitmarsh, okay, whether it's Adrian Newey, Lawrence loves a big, high pedigree name signing, and it doesn't always work. PSG's, I think, a very good analogy. So, yeah, Martin came in, phased Otmar out. Otmar left for Alpine. They needed some help. And you got to say, you know, with Otmar's tenure, at least it started kind of pretty okay. But according to him, he was promised full control of that team, which I think is ultimately important, to have one person accountable at the top if you're running a Formula One team anyway. Look, for example, Mercedes, many years of success, Toto Wolff at the helm. Yes, of course, Jim Ratcliffe with Ineos and Daimler owned 33% shares each, respectively. But Toto is very much left to do his thing. We're kind of, obviously, with Christian Horner, he's for a long time been left to kind of spearhead that Red Bull team. And now there's other influences coming in. It's starting to maybe destabilise that team a bit. I think that's fair to say. Otmar was promised full control, did not get it. Didn't have, you know, HR didn't account to him. Marketing weren't accountable to him. You know, there are a lot of departments within that team that weren't under Otmar's sphere of influence. And then, of course, the Otmar, Oscar, Laurent Rossi situation happened, didn't it? And we all remember that one. That was a hell of a day, wasn't it? Wow. I just remember when Oscar dropped that tweet, wow. The bomb had been dropped. But the thing is, it didn't, and I remember this at the time, and when you're looking at the dates around the whole CRB, the Contract Recognition Board hearing, it didn't seem to match up. It felt like all of this happened before Otmar's time. And, you know, that's what Otmar said. You know, this all happened in November. Otmar didn't join until March. And essentially there was a window in which this contract should have been signed for Oscar Piastri. It wasn't signed. And again, HR and all of that side of the business was in France, was at Renault. And Laurent Rossi, obviously at the time, was he CEO of Alpine? Obviously you got De Mayo at the very top. I can't remember what Laurent Rossi's actual title was, but that all fell on the French side of the business, and it wasn't done. And then, basically, and the reason where he, in the very thumbnail for this video, it says Alpine were out to get me. Because, and this is why Otmar feels that there was a bit of a vendetta, or at least they were looking to pass the blame. They were looking for a fall guy, for want of a better term. And when after the contract recognition thing was, Alpine lost that, McLaren won it, the contract recognition board hearing, and then on Alpine's press release they put Otmar's face on it, which, yeah, of course he was team principal at the time, but certainly they could have put Laurent Rossi's, they could have put Luca De Meo's, they put Otmar, who wasn't even in charge when it all happened. In fact, he wasn't in charge for another 4 or 5 months till after it all happened. So he clearly feels very personally, used as a way of distracting that away from the real people who made the mistake. Now, of course, Otmar did make some choice words at the time. He made some choice words against Oscar, of course, in terms of, loyalty, blah, blah, blah. And so I do somewhat get it because, when Jake asked Otmar about the words he had particularly for Zach Brown, Otmar was like, they did hold up as much as Oscar didn't sign a contract and Alpine didn't actually get a contract signed, they did hold up a lot of what was written in the contract, including 5,000 kilometers of testing in an old car. Now, fundamentally, listen, Oscar didn't have a contract. Technically, he was free to go. And that's why McLaren won the CRB, the Contract Recognition Board hearing, because there wasn't a contract signed. But did Alpine give value to Oscar in terms of those 5,000 kilometers of running? Of course they did. Of course they did. So I can understand, Otmar's come in. He's not privy to what's happened. As far as he's concerned, Oscar's signed. And it doesn't happen. They give Oscar all this mileage and give him all these FP1 runouts and all this media stuff in the back end, behind Ocon and Alonso. And I can understand, why on a personal level, Otmar would feel somewhat begrudged by it. But at the end of the day, the contract wasn't signed. But it wasn't his fault either. That's the thing. You can question whether it's cutthroat. And ultimately, Oscar made the right choice for his career. Because look at where McLaren are and look at where Alpine are. At the time, there was genuine. It wasn't crazy to question, well, is that just a bit of a sidestep going to McLaren from Alpine? Because at the time, they were pretty on a par. Now, they couldn't be further, could they? The testing mileage thing was always a point of empathy towards Alpine for me during this whole saga. And that's fair. That is fair, Snook. That is fair. But at the end of the day, the contract wasn't signed. And that was nothing to do with Otmar. So, I think ultimately it comes down to, at least in Otmar's perspective, the reason they were so keen to deflect and try and attribute at least public consensus blame to Otmar. Because, when this was all kicking off, Otmar certainly wasn't the most popular. And look, the way Otmar's put it is that the seniors, the higher-ups at Renault, are more interested in their careers than they are the success of the Formula One team, which is very damning words. But they are his words, and he's been there, done that. He's experienced working with these people. And you look at their trajectory, their downward trajectory, since Otmar left. Not that it's down to Otmar, but many people left. They tried to, get him to implement a management style that he did not agree with. And he wouldn't do it. And him and Alan Permain were shown the door. He wasn't the only one to leave. And Alpine have undergone a bit of a... Yeah, it's quite a lot of people have gone out the door. And this interview is, again, Otmar pulls no punches. And, because he can. He can right now, can't he? And I'd love to see Otmar lead up. He's talked about, he's working with another potential bid to get into F1, not Andretti, another US-based bid. But yeah, I do think he got a bad go of it, because I feel like, given what he did with Force India, how he achieved so much with so little in a budget cap era, I think if you give this man the keys, the way he talks, the way he, I don't know, he exudes someone who really understands people and the value of maximising the performance of the individual and not just throwing money at a situation. It's quite clear from what he's saying, Lawrence Stroll goes in and demands results, and he does that approach to get the best out of your people. And that can apply to any workplace, right? If you've got a manager who just comes in and has very little, just like, get results done, don't care about you, don't talk to me, just get it done, versus someone who, tries to put their arm around you a little bit more and really understand the nuances of what you're going through and what your role entices and how you can better do what you can do. I think there's a lot to be said for that. So, you know what? I hope he'll be back. But I don't know if it'll be anytime soon, to be honest. But yeah, again, link to the full podcast in the description down below. Is that rain? Oh no. Hannah's emptying the bath. So, we've talked a bit about Otmar. Let's now do a bit of Q&A-ing, shall we? Again, yesterday I posted on the community page a post asking for your questions, things that we can talk about in this stream, okay? To keep the old live streams chugging along. There won't be a live stream next weekend, by the way. Or it was next Monday, because me and Han are away on a little break with Minton for his 6th birthday, because he was 6 a couple of days ago. So happy birthday for Minton for 2 days ago. I've got a few of your question recommendations. starting with Majestic. Question. The FIA has just approved Tommo F1 for the 2025, assuming sufficient funds, big assumption there. Who is your engine supplier, team principal, driver lineup? Again, very big assumption. I have the sufficient funds knocking about. We'll see. Maybe one day. Maybe if Squarespace really want to go all in, then look, we can have this conversation, okay? Okay, who is my engine supplier? So, this is another interesting little insight actually from Otmar. So, he was saying that the Alpine power unit, and part of what he was working on when he was dropped was trying to get, trying to allow special dispensation for Alpine to up their performance because they were 25 brake horsepower down, which is equivalent to 15 kilowatts. From what he said, whereas all the other teams, the other three, so Honda, Mercedes, and Ferrari, almost thought Ferrari for a minute there, all within 1 kilowatt of each other, which is very interesting. Assuming sufficient funds, who's your engine supplier? Okay, so I immediately go to either Mercedes, they've got a breadth of deals with different teams, so they're used to running a customer outfit, and Honda. Problem with Honda is that, they might just leave again in a couple of years. So I would say Mercedes would be my engine supplier. Team principal, I've just sung that, yes, Otmar Szafnauer would be my team principal with a Mercedes engine, just like the Force India days, but with a bit more budget this time. So that's easy. Mercedes, Otmar. And honestly, not just because he's available, I think Otmar's a fantastic team principal. I really do. I think James Vowles is a very, very accomplished team principal as well. I think I would pick Otmar Szafnauer, though, genuinely. Genuinely, I think he would be... I see a lot of quality in that man as a leader, Mercedes can't provide to any more teams. Well, Stefan, I'll just be like, you know what? Williams, on your back, right? Tommo's here, right? Tommo's here. Seidel, you know what? Athara, I don't know so much about Seidel now. The thing is Andreas Seidel going to come out with a similar statement to what Otmar's just done in a couple of years' time, being like, Sauber Audi didn't know what they were doing, they were interfering, micromanaging? Maybe. You can also argue that, McLaren improved since Seidel left, but also Seidel did lay the groundwork to get McLaren to where they are now. So, but I think I would have more, if it was my team, you're starting from the ground up. Otmar knows how to build a team from the ground up. Truly the ground up, I used to be so high on Seidel. You know what? I did, Lowell. But then you see more evidence and you're like, well, it didn't work at Sauber. And again, in the same way that my belief in Otmar was severely shaken by Alpine, and I was like, oh, is he actually that good? Seeing him speak about this now and seeing how they've fallen since, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. I'm all in on Otmar again. I've not yet seen that about Seidel, Eddie Jordan, I don't think Eddie Jordan, in this day and age, maybe if this was back in the 90s, I think Eddie would be a great little hire, You'd get the deals done. But I think it's a different landscape now, Different landscape. Cyril beatable. I do like Cyril. Cyril would be a vibe, but I would go Otmar. Driver lineup, realistic options, e.g. people without a contract or people you might be able to tempt, also include your reserve driver. Okay, so driver lineup, drivers who are available and have quality. I'd really like to take a punt on someone like a Pato O'Ward. I think Pato is really good. He's consistently up there in IndyCar. Yet he hasn't got a Chip Ganassi underneath him. I think that he's obviously commercially great. There's a huge audience in Mexico, as we see from Checo, and I think Pato would cultivate a really strong support, which is a team owner, if that helps pay the bills, I think Pato can bring a lot of commercial viability over. He's young, he's quick, he's got a great character, a great personality. I think Pato, I'd love to see, I think Pato would be up there for me. Then it's like, okay, do you go for the thing is, a lot of the established F1 names either have seats or are kind of a bit past it, to be honest. Alongside Pato, I would go with... Oh, God, that's tough. What are you saying? Max and Alonso? No, Max isn't going to leave Red Bull for Tommo F1, are they? Come on. Danny Ricker's reserve. Colton Hurt would be cool, but he's not got the super license points, which apparently is a problem. Alex, but Alex is at Williams. You know, we're saying realistically here. People without a contract or people who might be able to tempt away. I don't think I'd be able to tempt Alex away from Williams because they are looking on a right trajectory. Kvyat, Palou obviously would be cool, but I feel like I'd need someone with F1 experience. Valtteri could be good. Valtteri and Pato, maybe. Oh, I love Ocon, but I don't know. It's a bit risky. Kimi Räikkönen return. God, it's tough, man. This is a tougher job than I thought it'd be, actually. You know what? Nikita and Nicholas. I'm not so sure. Maybe, yeah. You know what? Actually, Sterlo, I like that. Free Yuki Tsunoda and Pato O'Ward. Reserve driver is... Who's reserve driver? I'm going to go with Gabriel Bortoleto as reserve driver. There you go. All right. Bosh. Job done. Easy job. All right. Pato, Yuki, Bortoleto. That's my team. Lovely jubbly. We spent far too long on that. But thank you, Majestic Demon Lord, for your question. Next question. Reese, if you were given the decision to remove 3 tracks currently on the calendar and add 3 tracks which aren't on the calendar, which would you be adding and removing? Personally, Qatar, Miami, Abu Dhabi, add Hockenheim, Mugello, Sepang. Well, as you can see from the image I chose, my first one to let go, in no particular order, would be Imola. Now, I know Imola's got great history. You know, in this sport, it's been around for a long time. It's a circuit of significance to a lot of people, but in these big F1 cars, it just doesn't work. And we already have an Italian race in Monza, and I like Monza. So I would drop Imola. There's also plenty of European races already. I would drop Imola. I would drop Miami. Obviously, Miami's got a cool, unique vibe to it. Just trying to kind of go through in my head. Any other tracks that I didn't used to be, part of it's probably now that I've been there, right? I like the Hungaroring more than I used to. I didn't used to have a lot of love for the Hungaroring, but now I'm like, okay, I see you, Hungaroring. I see you. Bahrain's okay. Vegas, I think needs a bit more time. Yeah, I feel like probably now that we've got Vegas, I feel like that kind of takes the position that Miami fills, you know? So yeah, maybe I'll take away Imola. I'll take away Miami. What else would I take? I mean, Qatar just doesn't... It's a bit of a soulless track. You know, we've got plenty of Grand Prix in the Middle East. I prefer Bahrain to Qatar. I prefer Saudi to Qatar. I prefer Abu Dhabi to Qatar. So I think Qatar, Miami, Imola. You've got Qatar, Miami, Abu Dhabi race, but I would take Imola away. I kind of have warmed to Abu Dhabi. I think Abu Dhabi's quite nice. I quite like it. in its place, okay, so Sepang would be a good shout. I think, obviously, weather-wise, it's a tricky. You have to find the right part of the year because it could be a washout every year if you're not careful in terms of when it is in the calendar. But I'd love to see Sepang back. I would. I think another South American Grand Prix would be great. I don't really know of tracks in, say, if we had a race in Argentina or Chile or Peru. I don't know. We've obviously got one in Brazil already. I don't really know of many circuits, but I'd love there to be one in Argentina. I think there's a big market for that. India as well. Yeah, bring Bud back maybe. I feel like the Indian fan base for F1 is absolutely there. Absolutely. That kind of fell apart, didn't it? It was kind of issues with local government that was a contributing factor towards that. I think if you could take a track, I think Istanbul would be cool. Avis for the banter. I think Sepang, yes, definitely. I know Turkey's kind of, well, it's literally on the border, isn't it? In and out of Europe. I think realistically, Sepang, Istanbul, bring them back permanently. Yeah, I mean, I would like to say a track in Argentina, but I genuinely don't know of any. So other than that, I guess just another part of the world that doesn't have, F1 in it, which of course would be in Africa. I mean, Kyalami. You know what? I literally don't even know what I know what the layout of Kyalami looks like, but I've never driven it on a sim or anything. So I think Kyalami, Sepang, Istanbul is probably what I would say. Mugello is cool, but again, we've got enough European Grand Prix, and also for these modern F1 cars, I love Mugello. It's one of my favourite tracks to drive on a sim, but I just don't think for F1. Fuji's cool, but I do much prefer Suzuka to Fuji. So, yeah, I'm going to say Istanbul, Sepang, Kyalami are the three that I would introduce in place of Imola, Qatar, and Miami. There you go. That is my choice. Laguna Seca would be sick, Clover, don't get me wrong, but also it'd make the drivers sick because the corkscrew would not work with F1 cars. That would be a bit too much. But thank you, Reese, for the question. Next question from SR2448. If all the F1 drivers were given a spec equal Mazda Miata, otherwise known as the MX-5 over here in the UK, and had a short 3-round championship, who do you think would win? Now, driving a Miata is a very different challenge to driving an F1 car. Alonso, Kimi, probably Max. I'm just reading some of your replies here live. I think so. There's a particular driver that came to mind, not necessarily to win the whole thing, right? But I think Liam Lawson would be great because he's quick in everything. He's quick in Super Formula. He's quick in DTM. He's been quick in all the junior formulas. He might not have won loads of championships, but he's always been up there. And I think his ability in DTM was, I mean, he battered Alex. Let's be real, he did. I think Carlos would be very good, very adept. However, my mind does immediately come to Fernando Alonso, to be honest. I mean, the experience that bloke's backed up, whether it's, driving IndyCar, driving in WEC as well, winning Le Mans. It feels that Carlos will come fifth. Brendan Hartley, unreal in a world endurance car. unbelievable. Verstappen, Hulkenberg, Lewis, all the old timers, Adrian. Yeah, I think for what a Miata needs, I feel like Fernando would wring the neck out of it. I think Liam Lawson would do a very good job, though. I do. I think he'd do a very good job. Max is heavily under. Look, Max has got plenty of iRacing hours. Maybe not in a Miata, but like probably something a bit close. I think it's just an experience game, isn't it? Because some drivers excel in open wheelers and struggling, whatever you want to call it, GT racing, and you imagine a little Miata is going to be much closer to that GT sensation, just a lot slower. So yeah, I think Alonso. I think I'd say Alonso, but Liam Lawson would be up there. I'm going to say Liam Lawson top 5. There you go. Take that, put that in your pipe and smoke it. Right. Thank you, SR, for the question. Next one, got a couple more, and then maybe we can just take some from the actual live chat of all of you wonderful people who are here. So thank you. God, your thumbnail face is so grating. Thank you, Darkman. I appreciate you too. Next from who's this? Tiernan. Thank you, Tiernan. Would having a rookies only sprint race boost viewership? It's something I desperately want to see. Hello from Melbourne. Love a bit of Melbourne. Would having a rookie only sprint race boost viewership? Now, of course, there has been a lot of talk about a rookie only race endorsed by all the teams, but it's not going to happen at the end of this year. The FIA and F1 kind of cited, I don't know, I guess things getting in the way. Oh, Tinnan's here. Hello, Tinnan. Timing wise and not being able to get it done, which I mean, does it sound a bit of a cop out? Maybe, but also, I mean, I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not a cop out. Either way, almost certainly next year, at the end of 2025, we will be getting a rookies only race at the end of the season. Would it boost viewership? Now, would it boost viewership? Like, I think people like us, okay, who are really invested in Formula One and love this game, would love it, right? We'll be all over it. However, we account for a small portion of the overall fan base. Do I think the average F1 fan is that bothered about a bunch of people they've never heard of driving F1 cars? I don't. Realistically, I think this is something that teaches the teams a lot. I think it's really interesting for us to see the next generation of talent coming through. And I absolutely think they should do it. But do I think it boosts viewership? It would boost viewership. Do I think the average F1 fan would care? I don't think so. Because they could just watch F2 and they're not watching F2. You know what I mean? Like, again, F2 cultivates a fan base who is very engaged and very interested. There's already a lot of young drivers racing on the same tracks as F1 they're slower cars, but they, again, to the average, non-motorsport fan who just kind of knows of F1, they'll probably look at them and be like, oh, they're F1 cars, aren't they? Like, probably, They're not all nerds like us. So I think we'd love it. I think the teams would love it. Well, unless they crash loads, obviously. They won't love the repair bill. But do I think it will boost viewership? Probably not. But that shouldn't stop them doing it. So, yeah. Probably just a bit more viewership than F2 race. I disagree, Harry. I think there would be a good, like, relative to an F1 race, I think it would be less, to be honest. Relative to a typical F1 race. But it will still be more than like an F2 race. I'll probably put it somewhere in the middle, in my opinion. TJ, none of my mates that like F1 don't watch F2. Yeah, I mean, again, look, you've got to be, literally, when I interviewed Ollie at the start of the year, humble brag, he literally said, like, if you're an F2 fan, you're a proper motorsports fan, because those are the people who actually care. When I asked him, since you got that FP1 run out, last year in was it Mexico, his first one, how has that changed? And he's like, yeah, like so many more people are aware of me now that I've driven an F1 car that had no idea who I was when I was in F2, because that's how the bulk of people consume sport. To be honest, I've kind of fallen into a much more casual football fan since this F1 stuff's taken off because, it consumes so much of my sporting interest, which is finite. I don't have an unlimited amount of interest for all of the sports that I'd love to be interested in, But yeah, I hope we see it. Would it boost viewership? No, but I think we'll still watch it. So still do it, please. Please, F1, still do it. It'll be fun. Cool. And then final question before maybe we take a few from the live chat. If you've got any particular ones, then save them up. KP, do you enjoy F1 less because it's your job? It was quite an interesting one because it's a very kind of personal question to me. Isn't it they say that don't make a career of your something you like? Isn't there like a saying, something along those lines? Don't make a job of your passion or whatever. The thing is, I think for me, this was making videos when I first started in like 2016. When I don't make your hobby your job, that's it. When I was when I first started making videos in like 2016, I was doing football stuff. Make the whole making the videos and making a YouTube channel, that was the hobby. That was the thing I did outside of work because I enjoyed it and it made me happy. And it was like, I'm making something. I've always liked making things. Like, that was my thing. That's what I did. And like, then I started doing F1 stuff, and then eventually the numbers kind of go up, but the fundamental thing that you're doing doesn't really change. And I guess like, I was so skinny back then. It's true. I was a jinky. I was so skinny. I was too skinny back then. In like 2017, when I did my marathon, I was way too skinny. Because my head's massive, so it was like it wasn't good proportions back then. No, I will not show you the hairline, John. And look, I guess the difference with my situation is that literally, because when people say don't make your hobby your job, that's like, oh, if you're really into football, like you love football, would you go and work in football? But like my literal hobby is the making of the videos about a sport. And so my job is literally that. It's not like my job is, I don't know, working in Biggin Hill for F1 doing stuff. I think that's a bit different to like what I do. But look, that's the long way, the long way of me saying that. Do I enjoy it less than? No, I don't. No, I love it. And it's like I'm so lucky to be in this position where it's like I want to talk about these subjects, and also it's like oh that's also my job, like that's what pays the bills at the end of the day, and that's so sick. So no, I'm crazy lucky to have the literal hobby become my job, because I think that's obviously very, 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 very rare. So no. Are you a fan of Manchester City? No, I'm not. Ex-mob. Not. Do I sound Mancunian to you? But yeah, there we go. There's a few. Thank you for sending those in. To anyone in live chat. Got any other? We've done 41 minutes. Maybe keep this going for another 10, 20, if you want. If you want to keep this chugging along. If you've got any questions for me. Given the rumours Bottas is being too demanding with his contract and Bortoleto and Colapinto are both no longer options, what do you rate Olmic's chances of getting back in? Well, I mean, look, maybe Bottas is being too demanding with his contract. I'd be surprised because, Sauber's his only option. If I was Sauber, I would definitely, as much as I think Bottas can definitely still do a job in F1, I think that they've got Hülkenberg as their reliable, very, established, very experienced pair of hands already. So then bringing in a Colapinto or Bortoleto, is less of a gamble because you've already got Hülkenberg to lead that team's direction. Does almost having two experienced drivers mean like, well, maybe Bottas wants to take it one way, Hulkenberg the other? I don't know, maybe. If I was in charge, I'd probably... Look, the thing is with Colapinto is that he's actually stepped into F1 machinery and he's actually done it. Even though he wasn't... He was like 7th in F2 when he got promoted. He was like 4th in F3 last year. He was 9th in F3 the year before that. Like, these aren't crazy numbers. Whereas Bortoleto could be about to go back-to-back F3 champion and F2 champion. But Bortoleto's actually done it. And we saw from... Look, Sargent was a very... He only just lost out on P3 in F2, didn't he? Right at the end, because Lawson nabbed him. Or was it Doohan? I can't remember. Either way, Lawson finished like... Sargent finished like 3rd, 4th, whatever in F2. Zhou Guanyu finished 3rd, 4th, wasn't it? Something like that. In F2. But I think what we've seen now, and the fact that Behrman is where he is in F2 and has done as well as he has in F1, and Kimi Antonelli, you could say the same, him being, 6th, wherever he is in F2. There's not a direct correlation between how you perform in F2 and how you're going to perform in F1. So you would think that Bortoleto, if he is, a guy who can go back-to-back F3, F2 in his rookie season as champions, you'd think that that's a pretty... Because that's Charles Leclerc, George Russell, Oscar Piastri territory. But Colapinto's actually in the car and actually performing pretty close to Alex Albon. So it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. Both are very commercially valuable, I think. Bortoleto, Brazil, Colapinto, Argentina. Both going to bring, I think, a good amount of funding to them. Not that Audi need that, but I'm sure it helps because VW Group are not in the best state at the moment. And if they can, run this team without too much interference from, without too much bankrolling needed from the top, then that's gonna help. Honestly, I don't know. I'd pick. If I had to pick between Bortoleto and Colapinto for Sauber, come on, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. Porsche's chances are gone. I mean, it's really sad. It is a shame, but his chances are gone. No chance. If you were in charge of Sauber and had to pick between Cole and Bort, who would you pick? So I'm just giving you two options, Colapinto or Bortoleto at Sauber specifically. Let me know in the poll. Let me know in the poll. Let me know. Who would you pick? It's a tricky one. Because again, there's no guarantee that Bortoleto will live up to the standard that he's set in F3 and F2, but he's 2 years younger than Colapinto as well. He's like 19, isn't he? And Colapinto's 21. But Colapinto's actually doing it in an F1 car, but then it's doing it in a Williams. Would he do it in a Sauber? Will Bortoleto do it in a Sauber? I just don't know. I think Colapinto is the safer bet. I think Bortoleto is the more ambitious, risky bet. Because the potential... Again, if F3, F2 champion back-to-back, that doesn't happen very often. And when it does, they... 100% of the time, I don't know. It's 3 races, biggest McLaren fan. He's done 3 races. I think they could afford to gamble on Bortoleto. I think I'd probably go Bortoleto. I think. Because you've got Hulkenberg there as the but I don't know. Maybe ask me tomorrow and I'd say Colapinto. Would anyone succeed at Sauber? Good question. Good question. Hello, Gail. 60-80% of you think Colapinto. It's tough. It's very tough. Tough to say. Any other questions Any other questions? Either, as long as it's not Bottas, 2 older drivers will be boring. Well, Sterlo, I think they could. Bortoleto would be a very ambitious choice. Again, potential back-to-back F3 and F2 champion. But then again, also it depends a lot on the caveats. So that say Sauber, okay, you can have Colapinto or Bortoleto, but Williams and McLaren respectively both retain an option on them in the next 2 years. If that's the case, then it's like, is it worth it then? Like, maybe just go with Bottas, or just pick your own bloody junior driver. What about Maloney or Porsche, obviously, but that doesn't seem to be on the cards, does it? A driver I think who fell out of, never got to F1, but I think could have done a decent job actually. Callum Ilott. I think but he's made a bit of a career for himself in IndyCar, which is good to see, because he'll be at Prema, won't he? Of course, Prema's first year in IndyCar in 2025 will have Callum Ilott at the wheel. Thank you, Jabril, by the way, for the super chat. Random question: if you could have asked Kimi Räikkönen 2 questions that he had to honestly and fully answer in detail, what would that be? Wow, that's a very niche question, Jabril, but I like it. I like a niche question. 2 questions that he had to honestly and fully answer. I would ask him, who is the best driver he's ever driven against? Who does he believe the greatest driver he's ever driven against? Because he's driven against some greats. Be that Schumacher, be that Häkkinen. Did you drive against Häkkinen? Or was that when... Was there Crossroads? I can't remember. Vettel, Alonso, Hamilton, Verstappen, the list goes on. He's driven against some absolute greats of the modern era anyway. That'd be a good question to ask. Second question, what does he like for dinner? What's his favourite dinner? I'd love to know what the Iceman enjoys for a bit of grub. I think that's what I'd ask him. I think that's what I'd ask Gibby. Creative expression question, Tomo. What are your thoughts on what the new engine rules are going to do as far as the shaking up the running order? I foresee Mercedes engine being leaps and bounds better than the others. Well, look, I mean, the whole kind of it's going to be an engine formula thing has been thrown around a lot, right? Like it was in 2014 when Mercedes had a clear and obvious advantage in the engine department, and all of the Mercedes teams benefited because of that. Like Williams were actually decent back then because they had a Mercedes engine. And so it was fine that they developed a terrible car. So I would be... the thing is, there's going to be a lot of... Right, let's see if we can remember them all. Okay, I'm not getting any spoilers from the chat. So we've got Mercedes, Ferrari, Honda, Audi... Red Bull powertrains. Have I forgotten anyone? Yeah, Red Bull powertrains is Ford. Is that it? Is that 5? Is that 5? It's 5, isn't it? Yeah, because Alpine are leaving. Yeah, Red Bull Ford. Okay. Yeah, but Alpine aren't doing their own engine anymore, are they? Yeah, okay, I was right. Well done me. So there's much more, because we've got 5 different engine providers for 10 teams. There's, more variety, more diversity across the grid, in terms of the power units in the back. So, yeah, I mean, look, they've tried to do special dispensation when teams have got off to a bad start in the past. I do, surely there's going to be some teams that cock it up massively compared to others, So I feel like it will spread things out. And it really just does depend on how much these teams, if you do start with a fundamental disadvantage in the power unit department, how much you're allowed to then catch that up. Because it feels like the actual aero is going to be somewhat simplified further from where it is at the moment, But the teams always find ways to, to generate more vertices and therefore more dirty air, which, creates more downforce, but then it makes it harder to race. So, yeah, Alpine, what a shame. Hey, what a shame. How many teams would you like to see on the grid? 12, I think, is the perfect number. 24 cars. That would be nice, but I think we're all way off that, unfortunately. Who's winning Leclerc versus Hamilton, Lorca? Oof. So, I mean, look, I honestly think there is, given how long he's been at that team, how good he is over a lap, and how complete a driver I think he has become, if I had to put money on it, I would put money on Leclerc out-qualifying Lewis in their first season as teammates in 25 and outscoring him. I would. Lewis is great, but also Charles Leclerc is in the prime of his career and he is so good. And I think Leclerc right now is better than Hamilton. I do. I think Lewis at his best is better than the peak Leclerc, but I don't think Lewis is at his peak anymore. I don't. But I don't think that's like... Lewis's peak was so insanely high, like arguably the greatest of all time. Like, you can make a very compelling argument for Lewis to be actually the greatest of all time. Like, I don't think, like, he's what? Is he already 40? Or he'll be 41 when he joins Ferrari, whatever. That's no shade on Lewis to be like, well, he's probably not quite at his absolute all guns blazing best. Like, it's probably the same for Alonso as well. But that's no disservice to them. The fact that they've gone on for as long as they have and been as consistent in so many different cars as well. Because you see now Ricciardo struggled, moving into different regulations. Vettel the same as well. But like Lewis and Fernando have always been up there. And I don't think they're at their best anymore. I do think they're not. But like, I don't think that's a controversial thing to say at all. You know? It happens to all of us. Okay? The grades are coming for me as well. Okay? And they'll be coming for you as well. For some of you longer than others. But it all comes along. It all comes along. And it's completely embedded into that team, of course. Yeah, no, I think that kind of goes without saying as well, right? I think Leclerc just understands this, and Lewis has never raced anything other than a Mercedes engine. That's going to be a whole different... He's going to have to learn all this additional stuff and then be as quick, if not quicker, than one of the greatest, I think, of all time over a lap, who is Charles Leclerc. Over a lap, I think, absolutely. Favourite crisp, Luke? That's the question we're looking for. Okay, so I do really like a cheese and onion. What's my favourite cheese and onion crisp? There's some really good ones, actually, that the kettle chips, and it's in like a yellow bag, and it's so cheesy, and it's probably like, it's just a disgusting amount of calories, but I could fully just sit on the sofa with F1 and just eat the whole bag and just be very happy. The banging. Sour cream and... I don't mind sour cream and onion flavoured crisps. They're alright. Alright. Chances that either Colapinto or Lawson flop by the end of the year. I mean, depends what... I think Colapinto's already proving something. I do think that maybe this is a bit of a shake-up that Alex needed before he goes toe-to-toe with science. Like, come on, son. Williams are backing you here. Like, come on. You should be beating Colapinto. I think Lawson's too adaptable. I think he's too good to let Yuki... Because he knows there's a Red Bull opportunity here. And I think Liam's got the mindset to nail it. I actually think... I think Liam will... I think he'll get that seat for next year. I do. Do I think Perez is safe for next year? I mean, I don't even think they know. I don't even think they know at Red Bull what they're going to do with Checo, to be honest. I just don't. Thank you, Jabril, by the way, for the super chat. Since F1, Mercedes road cars lost reliability. What? Are you saying, Jabril, that they have lost reliability? I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't. Yeah, I feel like that's a fair statement. Though. I don't think Mercedes are particularly known for their reliability anymore, whereas I feel like they used to be back in the day, pretty bulletproof. But I mean, cars are built like phones, aren't they? They're built to break at some point, so you get a new one. Whatever that term is, that engineered obsolescence or whatever it's called. I just feel like that's just the case with most road cars now, unfortunately. Thank you, Sparky, as well, for the super chat. Can you make a video about rating the entire F1 grid on wet weather and dry driving from the 24 and 25 F1 grid? I think it would be good to know. I mean, you know what, Sparky? I would love to know that as well. That sounds like a video that would... It's because I feel like certain drivers have a reputation for being like really excelling in the wet, but almost it's like understanding what it takes to really thrive in those conditions. I think like I sometimes struggle really like what is it actually that it's just that innate feeling behind the wheel and knowing what lines to take and knowing like anticipating. So much of wet weather driving is just anticipation. Like you expect a certain amount of grip because you don't know. Whereas in dry conditions, you go into a turn and you've got a 99.9999% sure chance that that level of grip is what you're expecting it to be. Maybe there's a bit of oil down, right, and that catches you out. But most of the time, the amount of grip you expect is what you get. But in a wet dry race as well, when it's raining on certain parts of the track and not on others, and lap by lap it's changing, you just don't necessarily know how much grip's going to be underneath you when you go for a move, when you go just for a normal little lap. So it's a good question, Sparky. You know, I'd love to know the answer to that myself. I'm not sure if I'm the right guy for a video on that, to be honest. I feel like that's one for. I think the race could do a good job on that one. Actually, I think they are better equipped. Honestly, I think I know my limits. I know my limitations. What's your attainable dream car? Ooh. There's that really nice Lexus. I really like the Lotus Emira. Is it Lexus? What is it? LS. There's a really nice Lexus I like. I can't remember what it's called. LC, is it LC500? I think it's the LC5. Yeah, the LC500. I really like that. That's mint. Not the LFA. I wish. The LC500 is kind of like a budget version of the LFA. I really like the LC500. I love the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. I do, actually. I really like the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. The one, not the most recent one, but the one with a really wide mouth without that extra little black bit on the bottom. Actually, that is mint. I absolutely love that car. McLaren W1 is nice as well. Oh, look. We have a Minton. Come on then. Minton. Come on. Right, do you want to say hello to your adoring fans? Okay, what's your favourite car, Minton? Do you like the McLaren W1? I think the McLaren W1 looks sick. I actually do really like it. I do really like it. How did you like being a guest on the Red Flags pod? Yes, Jenny, I was a guest on the Red Flags pod, which went out earlier today, actually. So give that a watch if you're interested. Good chatting with the lads. It was good fun, actually. Really good fun. Enjoyed that. Yeah, give it a butch. I explain why I support Alex Albon, why I like Esteban Ocon as well. And yeah, we had good fun. Are you a big Top Gear Grand Tour fan? Oh, I loved Top Gear back in the day. Honestly, I never really watched Grand Tour. I never really got into it, to be honest. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, Top Gear was absolutely. It was just part of the ritual, the routine every Sunday. Top Gear time, loved it. If you weren't living in the UK, where would you be? Probably Australia, or like Amsterdam. At one point we considered moving to Australia, and then we got this little guy, and we're like, well, no, we've got to stay here now, because we wouldn't put you through that traumatizing flight, would we? He'd hate that. And then yeah, we were thinking about Amsterdam as well for a bit, just to move there for like 6 months or something. But then Brexit happened, and that kind of put a halt on that. Come to New Zealand. Daniel, I love New Zealand. Wellington, beautiful. Really liked Wellington, actually. Wellington's one of my favourite cities in the world, actually. I loved it there. Really enjoyed it. You should go visit Jeremy on his farm. Yeah, it's a bit far from me. Bit far from us. Bit far away. Favourite takeaway? Favourite takeaway is... Actually, there's a really good Indian takeaway where I live that it's quite bougie, but it's very good. The portions aren't crazy massive, which is a bit of a shame because you usually get massive portions with Indian takeaway, but it's good. It's good. And I love a Nando's. I've got to be honest. Of the kind of chain restaurants in the UK, I think Nando's is probably my favourite. Can't lie. Which might say a lot about me, but you know what? So be it. So be it. Thank you, Daniel, by the way, for the 14 months. Love it. Thank you, Jabril, again. I'm worried Albon turns out the 11th best driver, pound for pound, in 2015 with Science coming in. Any concerns? 11th best driver, pound for pound. I guess you mean like, yeah, you're concerned that Science will come in and batter Albon. I mean, look, it could well happen. Am I concerned? Look, I don't know. Alex is my favourite driver. But if Carlos comes in and beats him, I mean, Carlos will have done a better job. And if Alex loses his seat based off of that, then you know what? Like, fair. In the same way that like, Perez deserved Alex's seat when he replaced him for 2021. I said it at the time and I'll say it now. Perez deserved that seat over Alex. Like, Alex hadn't shown enough to merit being there alongside Max at Red Bull. And that's it. Like, I can't get upset if these decisions are being made based off of sporting merit that I agree with, ultimately. You know? Chinwag, we all know Laurent Rossi was a snake in Alpine. Well, it doesn't bode well, does it? But then he was dropped as well quite soon after Otmar, wasn't he? So, ouch. We should go to Nando's order. Nando's is overrated. Look. To be fair, I've actually... So me and Ham went to South Africa earlier this year. So I've had traditional, local, authentic South African Nando's. And obviously I've had British Nando's. Very different. Tastes very different. I tried to order like as similar a thing as I could get on the menu in South Africa. And it tasted nothing like what we get in the UK. But I like to I'll get either 4 boneless fries or the chicken butterfly. But usually the boneless fries with... And I usually get, to be honest, I get medium or hot. I don't think there's much difference. I think the difference between like medium and like mild is like... sorry, this is completely divulged. This could be further from an F1 podcast right now. I think there's a big difference between medium and mild, but then medium and hot, there's not actually much difference. And I think I prefer the taste of the hot. So I tend to get the hot, and then peri chips, tender stem broccoli, and then some halloumi and a Peronaise, and then a drink with that. That's what I get. Will I do more videos with Mr. V? Yes, absolutely I will. Daniel is a good guy. Absolutely. Right, okay. I'm going to wrap it because I'm just fully waffling now. So thank you all for listening and watching. And then, yeah, it's been fun. A bit more of a chilled stream. I haven't done one of these for a while, but we got through some questions. We talked about Otmar Szafnauer. Thank you for liking the video. I'm sure you already have, but just in case you haven't, go and like the video. Subscribe to the Tommo YouTube channel. Make sure you rate 5 stars, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that good stuff. Leave a comment over there as well. I'll try and get back to you. And pleasure as always. We're going away. We're going to have a little break, aren't we? Later this week. So I won't be... Probably not going to be a video this week. But yeah, when I'm back, it'll be... How long until the next race? I don't even know. Too long. Too long. Far too long. But either way, I'll see you when I see you, I guess. So, thank you all for watching. Bit of a break from Tommo content. but we will be back in time for Austin, don't you worry. Thank you, Rivethead, Awkward, Cyan, Renato, Tashar, Cowrie, Pancon, Luke, Dre, Ty, Creative, Daniel, Salma, CJ, Pit Lane, Pulse, Jawad, Valex, Aztec, Braden, Bashuro, I think I said that right, Atik, Taco, Priest, Kev, Katlego, Egon. Much appreciated. Thank you all. My name's Tomo. His name's Minton. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da. Bye-bye. Say bye. No, you won't say bye, sorry.